Hi, everyone. Welcome to ConvHERsations with Kristie. I am Kristie Clayton, the founder of HERverse. HER is an acronym for Helping Executives Rise, and we have the honor and privilege of doing that in 3 ways. We have a peer community for second-in-command leaders, a peer community for leadership team members, and we do executive coaching for visionaries and business owners, that integrator, second-in-command leader, and leadership team members. But enough about me. We are here to talk with Chris. He is with Bite 7. Chris, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here, Kristie. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, introduce yourself. Who is Chris and what is Bite 7?
Oh, Chris is a mystery, even to Chris. But yeah, so I am in Raleigh, North Carolina right now. I have been with Bite 7 for a little over 2 years. This is something that with my partner, Walt, who's the visionary, and we also have a third partner, Alan. We've kind of created this in the last 2 years, and Bite 7, and we'll talk more about it, but really simply is a way for business leaders to measure the health of the organization and the people they lead, and figure out how they can be more helpful and what needs they aren't meeting, and in which ways they are frustrating the people who work with them every day, so that we can come up with a plan to fix it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. And listen, Walt Brown is one of my favorite people on the planet. So I have to say, I'm slightly jealous you get to work with him all the time, because I would surround myself with Walt as much as I possibly can. He's just such a wealth of knowledge and experience, and he's just a great person.
Agreed. I agree. Yeah, he's awesome to work with.
Yeah. Well, tell me, how did you connect with Walt? Because your history, your career and your prior history isn't in this EOS business world and things. So what was your past and how did you connect with Walt?
Yeah, it's funny. So I have this football helmet behind me, which is not normally a prop or something I point to in the conversation. But since you asked, Walt and I went to the same high school in Raleigh. That's the NB stands for Needham Broughton High School. Almost 100 years old, 1929. Pistol Pete Maravich went there. He graduated with my dad in the class of 1965. So I'm really passionate about Broughton. I graduated in 2001. I think Walt in 1979. Yeah, 1979 maybe. So anyway, that is the connection that brought us together. So I was a high school English teacher and football coach for 17 years. I spent the first 10 in Baltimore, Maryland. And then I came back to Raleigh. My dream job had always been to be the head coach at my high school. And I got that job in 2016. So I came back with my wife. And at the time we had a almost 2-year-old daughter. Now we have a 10-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. But I got that job in 2016. In 2017, so right before my second season started, the JV coach came to me and said, listen, we are, a couple of guys we were counting on to help us coach have fallen through, and we're a couple weeks away from the season starting, and we need more help, right? It was we had 150 kids in the program, and we needed at least 6 or 7 JV coaches just to manage the 80 players they had. And he said, listen, I know a few guys that I used to coach with, like City League and middle school, and can I introduce you to them? And one of them was Walt, who I'd never met before. And I met with Walt, and Walt was great, very enthusiastic. Although he did tell me, he said, I just need to put it out there. I travel a lot for work, so I will come to as much as I can and help as much as I can, but I'm not always here. And that turned out to be very much true. I saw Walt maybe 5 times that season, but he was great when he was there, and we became good friends. And that was the only season he helped, but for the next 5 seasons after that, he allowed our coaching staff to use his office, like his, EOS session room. It's a walking distance from the high school, and it was beautiful with all these whiteboards and TV screens. It was much nicer than anything we had in the school. So we continued to use that, which was great because that meant I got to keep in touch with Walt. And when I left teaching and coaching a couple years ago, he was one of the people I reconnected with. And he said, listen, I've got this side project. It's a passion project, something I've been doing with my own EOS clients, but I think all EOS implementers should be using it. And even outside of EOS, like this works for, as long as your company has people in it, you should be doing this. But he needed somebody who could help full time with that. So I came on to help him get Bite 7 off the ground. We called it something. It was 7 questions, 7 promises originally, but that's just too to say when someone asks you, what's the name of the company you work for? So anyway, yeah, that's how we got to know each other.
And BITE is an acronym, right?
Yes, buy-in, inclusion, trust, and engagement, which is what we are going to help you increase on your team. And then the 7 stands for these 7 critical needs to belong and believe, to be accountable, measured, heard, developed, and balanced, which we think, if we can get a big check mark next to each of those 7, then you are going to do great work and be a great teammate and love where you work, and people are going to love working with you. So we want to make sure we're checking all of those boxes for everyone on the team.
I love it. So can you just share a little bit, like, what are the 7, or, what is one that you're most passionate about? Like,
oh, okay. Well, let me start with, I'm passionate about all of them. And they're all very interconnected, right? And they all boil down in a lot of ways to communication. But the first 2 from my background, as a coach and a teacher, are especially important. So the first one is to belong, which I think is every human's greatest need after, food and clothing and shelter. To belong to a group is essential, because, when we were cavemen, if the group decided to throw you out of the cave, that was it for you. You were going to starve, freeze to death, beaten by a saber-toothed tiger, you know. So it is, and we are wired for connection. And so that, it's not just kids and teenagers that worry about if they fit in. That need never goes away. And we're always wondering, what is my status in this group? Do these people respect me, like me, love me, appreciate me, or do they not want me around? So when I was running my own program, I thought the first and most fundamental thing that had to happen was for every, and I'm going to use gendered terms here because I did coach a handful of girls in 17 years, but it was mostly boys. So it was for every, boy, young person to feel like they belonged, like this was a safe space for them, that their coaches really cared about them beyond what they could contribute as an athlete. But we just, bottom line, we'd love to have you here. We think you're a great kid, and we're so glad you're with us. And then also, and probably more important to them, that their teammates also treat them that way. That they're welcome in the locker room, that we don't have kids getting picked on or ostracized, that we don't have cliques. So that was always my first fundamental thing. And, at Bite 7, that's really, we define belong around sharing and embracing the core values of the company, and then also having the skills to do the job you've been hired to do. So it's a right person, right seat kind of thing, value, skills. But I think you can, as an organization, you can choose values that are all about belonging, right? You can emphasize that as one of your core values. The way we treat each other here is that we affirm and we celebrate each other's success, and we go out of our way to share how much we appreciate being on the same team, and we appreciate you and love you and all that stuff. So that's one. I'll give you the second one. So then the second one is believe. And that was my second. So what I wanted for the kids was for them to belong. What I wanted for myself, not just because it made me feel good, but because it was essential for our success. I needed them to believe in what we were doing, right? The offense we're running, the defense we're running, the strategy we're using is smart. It puts us at an advantage, but also that just the way we do everything, the way we run practice, the way we run study hall, this is, trust me, I've thought about this. this is not my first rodeo. I know this works. I just need you to believe in the process. And I think probably all leaders feel that way. Just like, come on, please buy into what we're doing here. So those are my two favorite.
I couldn't agree more, right? And I love what you said about belong too, because I think it is a lesson that we all learned during the pandemic, right? Is that we were all isolated, very much so. And some of us, in ourselves in an apartment or in a house where we were truly all alone. And others that, the most interaction we had with somebody else was either, through Zoom, which was amazing. Don't get me wrong, but there's nothing like in-person connections. And so, I know for the whole pandemic, it was me and my husband and our dogs. Right. And that's, pretty much the only interaction that we got. So that isolation was not, it is just not conducive to who we are as beings. We are meant to be together. Yeah.
Yeah. And just that this is kind of a sad note, but it proves the point, which is that I saw this with two different, the really damaging effects of isolation on my father-in-law and my stepmom's parents. So, they were in their 90s, but they both went into the pandemic vibrant, healthy, connected, sharp. And then all three of them kind of were totally just shut off from the world. My step grandparents, I guess you call them my grandparents, but not even by choice. They were, visitors were not allowed in. They were not allowed to go eat with their friends. They couldn't get into the gym and they aged 20 years in 2 years in all the worst ways, and it's just, they had no connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I saw the same thing happening and again, I know that our goal was to protect, and because we didn't know what was happening and, we didn't know how quickly it could spread and all of the things, but it really, truly, the isolation, I think is the biggest lesson learned that we are not meant to be alone. We're really, truly meant. We are human beings and need to be together. Yeah. I love it.
I agree. And we do a lot through Zoom now, but I can tell you as a teacher at the time that like virtual school was a disaster. Not being able to be in the room and the kids, they need those connections with each other and their teachers. And anyway, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Listen, I didn't have kids in like in anywhere near elementary school or high school or anything, but I can tell you, like, supporting my team who did, there was lots of discussion. Again, they're isolated from one another, and yes, Zoom is amazing. And I will say, I am so incredibly, if there are great things that came out of the pandemic, and I do think that there are a lot of great things that come out of it. I do think us having like Zoom conversations. It's fantastic, right?
Way better than a phone call. Yeah.
So much better. And now we can have like conversations with people around the world and actually be able to sit and get to meet them, but nothing replaces that in-person info, right?
Yeah. I agree. I agree. You still can't touch someone through Zoom. And so, I don't coach high school kids anymore, but I coach my daughter's basketball team, my son's basketball team. And, just to be able to put your hand on someone's shoulder and look them in the eye and calm them down and get them to focus on what you want. It makes, and especially when, it's also a really great way to communicate you belong here, right? Mm-hmm. It's like anyway.
Yeah. A high five, just anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I used to require every kid who came into my classroom to give me a fist bump. I would stand in front of and some of them would want hugs and like extra, and that was fine too. But at the very least, I had to get a fist bump, and it makes all the difference in terms of how that kid comes into class and how they feel and all of that stuff. So, yeah.
I love that. I've seen so many videos of teachers that do that, right? As they line their, as they're coming in.
And they do all the like.
But yeah. Like that is amazing. And again, but how incredible that you have that connection with, belonging to not just the teacher in the classroom, but I mean, when I watched is the kids, like when they went in, they continued that excitement with each other too,
Yeah.
right? So it was amazing. It's that whole sense of belonging. Like
Yeah.
I'm meant to be here, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
tell me, like, the impacts. I know we've talked about that, in school because of your teaching, but talk to me a little bit about like the impact of somebody feeling like they belong at work. What is the pros to that?
Oh, I think it makes all the difference in the world. And so when you feel like you belong, first off, you have a lot more confidence in yourself to get the job done, and also to have the sort of autonomy to solve problems without having to, always ask your manager, supervisor, whomever, because when part of belonging is people trust you to get the job done, right? So you're more empowered, you're more focused on your work, you feel better. I think a lot of times, and this gets into the belief part too, but you believe that what you're doing matters. I matter in this role, and what I'm doing matters, and what I'm contributing, and the end product matters, and it helps people, and we're solving problems. And then it's also just that, how does your job impact your health? Well, it could be that every night you come home and you can't sleep because you're riddled with anxiety, or you're seething with resentment, and it's really affecting you in a negative way. That's for people who don't belong or don't believe that what's happening at work is good. But for people who do belong, you go home and you're energized, right? You might be, physically tired from a long day, but it's a good tired, and it's a meaningful tired, and you still have all of this attention and enthusiasm that you can give to your friends or family or your dogs or whoever needs it, whoever's counting on you. And I think that's belonging it's also kind of like a lot of things in life. It's contagious. It spills over. I think it allows you to do a better job in your other roles outside of work, of creating a sense of belonging. Yeah.
No, I love that because it's fulfilling, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not just here to collect a paycheck, but I'm here to make a difference.
Yeah.
And here's how I do that. And one of my favorite stories is, JFK asking the janitor, what are you doing? And he said, I'm helping put a man on the moon.
Yeah.
People don't think of that, right? Though a lot of times, if they're the janitor, they're like, my job here is to sweep up, to clean, do those things. They don't see themselves as contributing to putting a man on the moon.
Exactly. And I think that's what great leaders do. And this comes up a lot when we're working with clients and we're going over the results of and they may have scored low on the believe category. And it's like, well, how do we keep the mission front of mind? And how do we continually kind of remind each other that what we're doing is helping someone, right? If we weren't solving some problem or contributing some value, then we would cease to exist in an organization. So let's focus on what it is we're doing that helps other people, because that's a huge motivator. We all want to help. We would all love to be the hero in any kind of crisis if we could. So let's kind of, and I think part of what a visionary does is they're like sort of the group storyteller. Let's remind each other of who we are in this story, and what is the what is the danger, or the crisis that we have to overcome? What challenge do we have to rise to the occasion and meet? And obviously inspiring everyone that, yes, we can do it if we stick together and, follow the plan and all that stuff. But I think that's important.
I do too. So, if I'm sitting here as a second in command leader, right? I'm like, or even as a visionary, if I'm sitting here going, absolutely, I want my people to feel like they belong. I want them to see, how they contribute. I want them to feel like they're helping put a man on the moon, not just sweeping the hallways, right? What are some things that we can do? Like, what do you suggest for us?
Well, let me, I guess, answer this two ways. The first is that, in order for us to work with a client, people are always, I'm sure they're asking you all that. Everybody gets asked, who's your ideal client, right? And part of it is just, we have to share a few sort of fundamental beliefs. One, and you just said all of them. One is that the business is the people. It doesn't matter what our product is or what kind of, machinery. None of that matters without the people. They're the people that make the product, deliver the product. The business is the people. And then second, my job as a leader is to take care of my people. It is to put them in a position to thrive. That is bottom line what it means to be a leader, right? Servant leadership. It is my job to put these people in a position to thrive and get us all rowing in the same direction and all of the things that leaders should do. So then the question I always ask next is, okay, if we believe those things, then how do we do it, right? Do you know what exactly it is your people need from you? Do you feel really confident that you are meeting their needs? Would you know if you weren't meeting their needs? Can you measure these things so that you can see if you have a blind spot or what you need to do better? And so that's what we offer, is a way to measure very specifically and concretely if you're meeting these 7 critical needs. And then we figure out, hey, you're doing great in these areas. Let's lean into those strengths. Let's leverage those strengths. People do feel like they belong here. That is extremely valuable. Let's use that goodwill we have to solve some other problems. But also, hey, here's some ways that you're kind of dropping the ball for your people. And they might love you and love the mission, but they're really frustrated because they don't know what they're accountable for, or they're not being measured in a way that's helpful to them. And this is really common. People don't feel heard. They don't think their ideas matter. So what can we do to solve those problems? And the way we go about it is like, let's keep it simple. Let's prioritize what the most immediate need is that we need to address. Because if we try to solve all problems, nothing will get solved. If we make everything a priority, nothing's a priority. Let's really think deeply about what we want to address first, and then what tools do we have to address it, right? So we want to make this as easy as possible for people, or else it won't happen. That doesn't mean it's easy, but we want to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
And so we say, well, look at your toolbox. And when we work with EOS clients, we know what's in the EOS toolbox. A lot of our clients don't use EOS or any sort of turnkey business operating system, but everybody has tools. So we say, well, what kind of meetings do you have? Are you meeting one-on-one with folks? Does everybody get to be in those meetings? How often do they happen? Do you have an accountability chart? And then, let's pick one tool to solve one problem and really focus on it for the next 6 months. And then let's measure again and see how we're doing. So that's kind of our process that sort of answered your question. But I would just say to any leader, you need to have, it doesn't have to be bite 7, but you need to have something in place like that, where you're measuring so that you can keep a pulse, and then you have a way to respond. Because the worst thing you can do is give a survey or ask for feedback, however you ask for it, and then do nothing. Because that sends a very clear message that, well, we don't really think you have good ideas, or we don't really care about your problems.
Yeah.
We were just checking a box, but we're not willing to put any effort or time into this.
Agree. And I think something you said just like nailed it for me is, part of feeling like you belong is feeling heard.
Yeah.
Right? So they go hand in hand.
Definitely.
And if all you're doing is just sending a survey and then not doing anything where people are saying there is a weakness, they will not feel heard.
Yes.
Right. So now you almost be better off not doing the survey.
I couldn't agree more. And the next time you give the survey, they're not going to take it, or they're going to have some very nasty things to say about you.
or not even caring, like just not answering it truthfully, right?
Yeah.
Because why am I going to answer this? You're not going to do anything about it anyway. What's the point? Yeah. Oh, Chris, I knew we would have a fun conversation. I'm so glad we did this.
Me too.
And listen, how much of a fan of Walt I am. In fact, I even was working.
Wow.
Right? One of the
deep into the library.
I think I have all of them, and I have the new book on order too. So I'm so excited about it.
Okay, great.
To tell you, this made me feel so proud and that I felt like we belonged in the Bite 7 family, because you all did something so special when you came to Summit, is you actually branded this book for us. And it's such a simple thing that people can do. My message really here is, there's a million things you can do to make people feel like they belong, to make people feel heard, but it doesn't have to be something big and extraordinary. It can be something very, very simple, and it doesn't have to be super expensive, right? Feeling like you belong, feeling like you're heard can actually cost nothing, but the impact that it can have is priceless.
I think the most meaningful, I belong, or you belong, and I believe in you, that's always something that costs no money. It costs authenticity, it costs thoughtfulness, it costs compassion, but it doesn't cost money.
Exactly. And I think that nails exactly what this did for me. Was it felt so thoughtful, right? Co-brand, like putting our logo on yours, that just made us feel like we belonged. And
Walt deserves the credit for that. It was Walt's idea to get hot pink on the book. So he deserves all the credit for that.
Well, it was amazing, and we still have people talking about it. So thank you for doing that. I don't do this very often. In fact, I don't know that I've ever done this. But I will say, if you have not read Attract or Repel, it is an incredible book that Walt wrote, and it literally sits right here beside me. I refer to it all the time.
Awesome.
Pull it out, thinking about things. Even as as we're kicking off the year, my quarterly focus is culture, and really making sure that we're displaying the culture that we really want, and that it's walk the walk, not just talk. And so pulling this out and referring back to it has been a real game changer for me as we're trying to think through all this.
I'm really glad to hear that.
It's amazing. Love it, love it, love it. Hey, I knew this was going to be fun, and I'm going to end with 3 rapid fire questions. So here we go. So the first one is honor. Honor means a lot to me, because it's really truly thinking about the past generation who's laid incredible foundations for us. So who is a woman of a past generation that you would like to recognize and honor?
So when we were trying to pick out a name for our daughter, she's 10 now, so a little longer ago than that, we're bouncing around family names. We have a lot of great family names, a lot of women that we would love to honor in our family, but we ended up settling on was Eleanor, for Eleanor Roosevelt, who is a hero of mine and my wife's, and just so far ahead of her time, and so able to buck conventions and all sorts of kind of BS, I don't know, expectations of women and the first lady. And she really did amazing work, and pushed her husband. A lot of the great things that FDR did would not have happened if she had not made him do it. She was awesome. So that would be my answer.
I love that answer. That's a great one. And what an incredible honor that you named your daughter after her. That's so cool.
It is. Yeah, it is cool. And we have a book about Eleanor Roosevelt and Amelia Earhart. This is a true story. They took a plane flight together in DC one time, and we've read that to her many times as a kid, but we need to show her like a Ken Burns documentary so she really gets it. So I'm going to put that on my to-do list.
Oh, I love it. Let me know how it goes.
I will.
Empower, right? So empower is thinking of a woman of a current generation, a woman that is in business or leadership today that either empowers you or that you hope to empower. Yeah.
So I have Attract or Repel here, but I also have Dare to Lead, Brene Brown. That's always there. She has had as much or more of an impact on my own leadership and thinking about leadership as anyone. I used to, my hardest thing as a head coach was not holding my players accountable. That was pretty easy. It was holding the other assistant coaches accountable, especially guys who were a lot older than me and been doing things a lot longer than I had, and who they weren't crazy about kind of my character first approach. They were sort of more self-described old school. I had a hard time holding them accountable. And I had one of my best friends, her name is Liz Sweezy. We were talking about this and she said, I'm sending you a book, right? Because I was explaining how it's just sort of like, when I had hard news to deliver, I would really try to sugarcoat it, and then it would miss the mark. And she sent me Brene Brown, Clear as Kind, and I thought I was avoiding these hard conversations because I was a nice guy and didn't want to hurt their feelings, but really it was fear of my own discomfort and not willing to be uncomfortable that was preventing me from doing it. That book was a revelation to me. So big Brene Brown fan.
Oh, Brene is amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Love her. Love that. Yeah. And then, so inspire is really thinking about a woman of a future generation that you hope to inspire.
So that would be Eleanor Dawson, who named for Eleanor Roosevelt, you know, being a great role model for her and inspiring her is my top priority in life, along with her brother. And she doesn't need a lot of help to be, she came hardwired, inspired. She is great in so many ways, and she just loves putting herself out there, which is one of the things I'm really proud of her. She tries everything you can sign up for at school. She signs up for sports, chorus, drama, anything. She's like, I want to try it. And so my job as her dad is just to like protect that part of her. You know, because as you get into the middle school and high school years, sometimes it's not so cool to try everything and to allow yourself to be vulnerable or put yourself in a position where you can fail. And I want her to keep doing that. So I want to, I guess, inspire her and support her so that she stays that way.
I love that. And no surprise that she was your inspire, but I loved hearing you talk about her and her personality and how you want to continue that. So congratulations, friend. You were definitely that role model for her.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Chris, again, I knew this was going to be a fun conversation. Thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your experience and how we can really help people feel like they belong. And part of that is feeling like they're heard.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye, y'all. I'll see you next week with another great guest.